The horrors of recent months in Israel and Gaza have been intolerable, and there's been no let-up to the suffering in Gaza, no end to the cruelty for hostages. Millions are displaced, desperate and hungry. And thousands of my Luton South constituents have contacted me regarding the ongoing conflict, so I wanted to make sure I added my voice to this important debate, and I will echo many comments already made in this debate. Israel continues to use devastating tactics that have seen far too many innocent civilians and children killed, with unacceptable blocks on essential aid, nowhere safe for civilians, a humanitarian catastrophe, and now warnings of a deadly famine. And in that, it is women, children and newborn babies in Gaza who are bearing the brunt of the violence. Since the horrific attacks on the 7th of October, Israel's devastating response has killed over 11,500 children in Gaza, 1 in every 100 children in the Gaza Strip. And UNICEF have reported that 17,000 children have been left unaccompanied or separated from their families. Many of my Luton South constituents and other NGOs, such as Islamic Relief and Medical Aid for Palestinians, have highlighted that without an immediate and permanent ceasefire, the numbers dying of hunger, malnutrition, disease and unmet medical needs could far exceed those already caused by the bombardment. And I've heard, similarly in briefings like many others, from UK doctors who've regularly visited Palestine to carry out medical work and procedures and training, and they despair that we will see children dying from preventable disease and through lack of simple medicines, such as insulin for diabetes. And it's just terribly shocking. But alongside the horrific physical impacts, Oxfam, for example, have reported about 1 million children who are in need of mental and psychosocial support, the deep trauma of Palestinian children that will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Nearly all the children in the Gaza Strip require mental health support, and many are presenting very challenging symptoms, including extremely high levels of persistent anxiety, and just, the response to that, such as not eating and just despair. And while we say that, there is a hunger crisis and starvation setting in Gaza. It's the worst hunger crisis on the verge of a famine. Reports are that all children under 5 are at high risk of severe malnutrition, as that risk of famine conditions just continues to increase. And we've heard reports, and others have mentioned, and some of the briefing we've also had from Islamic Relief staff in Gaza, and they've described how desperate children are roaming the rubble-filled streets searching for scraps of food that they might find. I've also heard firsthand, like others, from doctors who have had to sadly do medical procedures in Gaza, including amputation of children's arms and legs without anaesthetic, because of the critical shortage of drugs and medical supplies. And we're also hearing how babies are being born on the streets, umbilical cords cut with any available sharp object to hand. The constant indiscriminate bombing, the debris, the electricity blackouts, the lack of fuel makes distributing any aid extremely dangerous and inaccessible in many parts of the Gaza Strip. And so well put by others anyway, to meet the need in terms of humanitarian aid, an estimated 800 trucks of aid would need to be entering Gaza daily. But since the 7th of October, the highest daily average number of trucks that has entered is 2. And as my honourable friend said, we really do need to question whether this is a blockade and what that actually amounts to. So I'd welcome the Minister's views on that issue. And with regards to aid, unfettered access for humanitarian aid is needed at such a scale to meet those desperate needs of the children in Gaza. So when we reflect on the points raised about the UN Relief and Works Agency, it's the largest agency operating in Gaza, through which 80% of aid to the Gaza Strip is delivered. And I asked questions about this, and in my response to my written question, the Minister of State in the FCDO said that the government are pausing any future funding of UNRWA whilst they review allegations of staff being involved with Hamas. But we have heard the Channel 4 reporting, the document in which Israeli officials allege that a dozen of UNRWA's employers are involved in the 7th of October attack led by Hamas. But Channel 4 reports it provides no evidence to support its explosive new claim that UNRWA staff were involved. So I would really welcome an update from the Minister with regards to the government's position on this, and if it is still going to pause funding and not resume, how is the government intending to fill the gap of aid and humanitarian aid in Gaza if we do not have this key UN agency being funded? So I recognise that the government in many occasions has expressed its commitment to ensuring much needed humanitarian aid and medical supplies reach Gaza for the many children who are in desperate need. So, as I close, will the Minister just provide information on the current position, but also what long-term plans the government has with regard to supporting children in Gaza, many who are now orphaned and who will be living with this trauma for the rest of their lives?